ethics. I think it's getting better, the connection. Hello. All right. So let me introduce what I'm going to be doing today. Today, basically, I'm just going to be reading a scene from Atlas Shrugged. Specifically, the scene, the story of the 20th Century Motor Company. So only people who've read Atlas Shrugged will remember this scene. There's no spoilers about Atlas Shrugged just by reading this scene. So if you haven't read Atlas Shrugged, you can still listen to this. And I'm reading this to try to produce an animated fan adaptation of this scene. So I know that a lot of people haven't read Atlas Shrugged in a while, so they might not remember what the scene is about. So I'm going to be reading the scene. Now, while we're here, you can also, ask questions about whatever you want, the channel or anything. But I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time reading the scene. And I warn you that this is not the entire scene from Atlas Shrugged. I have removed some paragraphs because otherwise it would be too long. But I haven't added anything or changed any words. Also, you have to be aware that you might not understand some things that I say because I have an accent. So I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. So let me just prepare things here so that I don't be interrupting the reading too much. Again, if you just tuned in, I'm going to be reading a scene from Atlas Shrugged, the story of the 20th Century Motor Company. All right, I'm going to get started. And after I read this, we can hang out here for a bit, and I'm going to talk about some other things. All right, it begins. It's 4 pages long. Well, more like 3.5 because the last one is very short. No, the 20th Century Motor Company is not the one on the train. It's a story about. It's a story that a former worker of a company that failed, Dagny finds him and she wants to know what happened to the company. Why did it go bankrupt? So he tells her what happened because he used to work there a long time ago. So that's the story we're going to read right now. Okay. Fixing the microphone. Again, I apologize if you cannot understand me because of my accent. The story of the 20th Century Motor Company. There was something that happened at that plant where I worked for 20 years. It was when the old man died and his heirs took over. There were 3 of them, 2 sons and a daughter, and they brought a new plan to run the factory. They let us vote on it too, and almost everybody voted for it. that's not true either. We thought that we were supposed to think it was good. The plan was that everybody in the factory would work according to his ability, but would be paid according to his need. The Starnes heirs made long speeches about it, and it wasn't too clear, but nobody asked any questions because they made it sound like anybody who'd opposed the plan was a child killer at heart and less than a human being. To his need. We're all one big family, they told us. We're all in this together. But you don't all stand working an acetylene torch 10 hours a day together. And you don't all get a bellyache together. What's whose ability and which of whose needs comes first? When it's all one pot, you can't let any man decide what his own needs are, can you? If you did, he might claim that he needs a yacht. And if his feelings are all you have to go by, he might prove it too. Oh well, it was decided that nobody had the right to judge his own need or ability. We voted on it. Yes, ma'am, we voted on it in a public meeting twice a year. How else could it be done? You care to think what would happen at such a meeting? It took us just one meeting to discover that we had become beggars. Rotten, whining, sniveling beggars, all of us, because no man could claim his pay as his rightful earning. He had no rights and no earnings. His work didn't belong to him. It belonged to the family. And they owed him nothing in return, and the only claim he had on them was his need. So he had to beg in public for his reliefs from his needs, like any lousy moocher, listing all his troubles and miseries, down to his patched drawers and his wife's head colds, hoping that the family would throw him the alms. He had to claim miseries because miseries, not work. He had to claim miseries because it's miseries, not work, that had become the coin of the realm. But that wasn't all. There was something else that we discovered at that same meeting. The factory's production had fallen by 40% in that first half year. So it was decided that somebody hadn't delivered according to his ability. Who? How could you tell it? The family voted on that too. They voted which men were best, and these men were sentenced to work overtime each night for the next 6 months. Overtime without pay. Because you weren't paid by time and you weren't paid by work, only by need. Do I have to tell you what happened after that? We began to hide whatever ability we had, to slow down and watch like hawks that we never worked any faster or better than the next fellow. What else could we do when we knew that if we did our best for the family, it was not things or rewards that we'd get, but punishment? So we did our best to be not good. There was one young boy who started out full of fire for the novel ideal, a bright kid without any schooling, but with a wonderful head on his shoulders. The first year, he figured out a work process that saved us thousands of man hours. He gave it to the family, didn't ask anything for it either, couldn't ask, but that was all right by him. It was for the ideal, he said. But when he found himself voted as one of the ablest and sentenced to night work because we hadn't gotten enough from him, he shut his mouth and his brain. You bet he didn't come up with any ideas the second year. There's no surer way to destroy a man than to force him into a spot where he has to aim at not doing his best, where he has to struggle to do a bad job day after day. But there was nothing for else to do except to fake unfitness. The one accusation we feared was to be suspected of ability. Ability was like a mortgage on you that you could never pay off. There was one old guy, a widower with no family, who had one hobby: phonograph records. I guess that's all he ever got out of life. In the old days, he used to skip meals just to buy himself some new recording of classical music. Well, they didn't give him any allowance for records. Personal luxury, they called it. But at that same meeting, Millie Bush, somebody's daughter, a mean, ugly little 8-year old, was voted a pair of gold braces for her buck teeth. This was a medical need because the staff psychologist had said that the poor girl would get an inferiority complex if her teeth weren't straightened out. The old guy who loved music turned to drink instead. He got so you never saw him fully conscious anymore. But it seems like there was one thing he couldn't forget. One night, he came staggering down the street, saw Millie Bush, swung his fist, and knocked all her teeth out, every one of them. Amusement was the first thing they dropped. Even our tobacco allowance was cut to where we got 2 packs of cigarettes a month. And this, they told us, was because the money had to go into the baby's milk fund. Babies was the only item of production that didn't fall, but rose and kept on rising. Because people had nothing else to do, I guess, and because they didn't have to care. The baby wasn't their burden, it was the family's. In fact, the best chance you had to get a raise and breeding easier for a while was a baby allowance, either that or a major disease. Love for our brothers? That's when we learned to hate our brothers for the first time in our lives. We began to hate them for every meal they swallowed, for every small pleasure they enjoyed, for one man's new shirt, for another's wife's hat, for an outing with their family, for a paint job on their house. It was taken from us. It was paid for by our privations, our denials, our hunger. We weren't so innocent either when we voted for that plan at that first meeting. We didn't just do it because we believed that the drippy old guff they spewed was good. There wasn't a man voting for it who didn't think that under a setup of this kind, he'd muscle in on the profits of the main abler than himself. But while he was thinking that he'd get unearned benefits from the men above, he forgot about the men below who'd get unearned benefits too. He forgot about all his inferiors who'd rushed to drain him just as he hoped to drain his superiors. That was our real motive when we voted. That was the truth of it. But we didn't like to think it. So the less we liked it, the louder we yell about our love for the common good. Well, we got what we asked for. By the time we saw what it was that we asked for, it was too late. We were trapped with no place to go. Yet this was the moral law that the professors and leaders and thinkers had wanted to establish all over the earth. If this is what it did in a single small town where we all knew one another, do you care to think what it would do on a world scale? To work. And whenever any man failed anywhere, it's you who'd have to make up for it. To work, with no chance to rise, with your meals and your clothes and your home and your pleasure, depending on any swindle, any famine, any pestilence anywhere on earth. And this is a moral law to accept? This a moral ideal? Well, we tried it and we learned. Our agony took 4 years, from our first meeting to our last, and it ended the only way it could end, in bankruptcy. At our last meeting, Ivy Starnes was the one who tried to brazen it out. She made a short, nasty, snippy little speech in which she said that the plan had failed because the rest of the country had not accepted it. that a single community could not succeed in the midst of a selfish, greedy world, and that the plan was a noble ideal, but human nature was not good enough for it. A young boy, the one who had been punished for giving us a useful idea in our first year, got up. We all sat silent and walked straight to Ivy Starnes on the platform. He said nothing. He spat on her face. He spat in her face. That was the end of the novel plan and of the 20th century. And that's the end of the script. So as you can tell, it's about 9 minutes long. In case you're wondering who's the voice behind the proof of concept, if you already watched the proof of concept, the voice is a guy I found on Fiverr. Fiverr is this website where you can like find freelancers and pay them to do whatever you want. So I found this guy. There were a few old men that do old men voices. So I found a guy whose voice reel I liked, and I sent him this script and gave him the instructions of how he should sound. I was like, well, this is set in Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin around the 40s, but then he's already older, blah, blah, blah. So he gave me a few readings of the script. And then, after that, I just give him some feedback on the pacing or where to, slow down for dramatic effect or stuff like that. And then, then we get the final recording. And that's what I'm using on this adaptation. Didn't even have to meet the person in real life. That's the magic of the internet. Let's see what else is here to talk about. Well, I hope some people will watch this later, because obviously this is in the middle of the day, so not a lot of people are online. But if you made it all the way till the end, whether you're here right now or you watch it later, remember this is all for a fundraising campaign. So if you want to learn more about the fundraising campaign, there's going to be links in the description of this video. And there's also going to be some other videos explaining what the project is about more in detail. And I'm not gonna be posting so much about the fundraising campaign from now on. There's another regular Millennial Rant fan video coming up very soon. And normal content, nothing to do with the fundraising project. But for those who did tune in right now with the short notice, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm gonna let you go because there's no more script. That was it. But I hope you have a great day, and maybe we should do another live on the weekend so that we can get more people and hang out and chat and stuff. All right. Thank you for watching.